So we're at Bridge Pottery with Micki Schloessingk. I'm going to hear a little about Micki's work, life and practice. So your home and your vocation are here at Bridge Pottery, which was established in 1987. So it now comprises studio space, kiln room, beautiful gallery made from local art, clay room and wonderful outdoor spaces. An incredibly dynamic and peaceful place to be. Is it something that has been long in the planning or that has evolved and grown organically over the years?
Yeah, I would say very much grown organically. Often quite suddenly and spontaneously little bits will evolve. One other big thing is that what we've done to the studio, that was a big change about 5 years ago, I think. I think maybe I have ideas in my mind for a while, so they're kind of quite slow for ideas to grow, and then suddenly it's the time. I do remember feeling for many, many years a little bit unsettled here because we hadn't really moved here with the intention of settling here. It was actually like a pause. So I basically made a huge commitment to make it work here. Yeah. So then it was exciting. Then once I'd made that decision, and then contacted one of my best friends, an architect. So I said, if you were building something, who would you advise? And her favourite architect was David Lee. So I contacted him, and I had quite a limited budget, but I said, what can we do for this? So he came up with this very good, very simple design. Was very into green materials, so green local materials. I was meant to be writing a book on salt glaze. I had actually got commissioned to write this book, so I decided that I would travel for a little period, go to America and Australia. I was doing that time more teaching, going abroad quite a bit, and I thought, well, I'll make a trip and do a survey of wood and wood salt kilns to decide on my next kiln, what shall I build. But I allowed myself to do the trip anyway, and that was really good because I felt much more at ease, enjoyed the trip, made very good connections with wood-fired potters in Australia, America. And then luckily this young American potter who had just finished a kind of apprenticeship got in touch. He wanted a place to work for a short period and was very keen on wood firing. And I said, are you good at building kilns? He said, yes. I said, okay, come. And he turned out to be just a fantastically good person, and helped me to build the kiln, along with this Danish student who happened to want some work that summer. So we built it quite intensely, quite quickly, in about 6 weeks. And during the process of building it, I was sort of changing the design all the time, and it kept kind of evolving. And whilst we were building it, I suddenly decided to extend the firebox, double the size of the firebox, so that I could have that space for the front chamber pots. Yep. So slowly, that's progressing.
You seem very open to creative conversations and explorations, and I know individual potters and other creatives who come and draw succour from yourself and from Bridge Pottery, and many of the developments have maybe been led by yourself but with influence from others and collaboration. Is that always been important to the way?
Well, I think it has it's kind of come about as a sort of phase of life. When I talk now to you, it's to do with when my whole family situation changed, when the children had grown up. To run a pottery on your own, especially a wood-fired pottery, daunting, really daunting. Often feel like I need help, and I think I like the energy of having other people around, friends, and we become a kind of little community of people who have sort of passed through here, but we still feel I tend to stay quite connected. People come back at periods, people come and go a little bit. So again, it's a way to stay without being very intentional about it. That's sort of what's happened. It wasn't really a big plan.
No. But
it just sort of happened.
And the vitality of that certainly feeds into your work. Seeing you throwing a few different forms earlier, I have to say, and this is not, but it seemed as if the form sort of grew out of you, I have to say. It was such natural ease that you were throwing on the wheel. And I know you stated a wonderful aim, which is to make pots that grow on those who use them, which is just such a wonderful idea and notion. So your thinking behind that is very much to make for the everyday and of the everyday and of you, really.
So, I mean, I don't see myself as a, I was sort of trained at the time of the production potter and making sort of series of tableware, but I'm much more drawn to forms that are slightly in between, slightly elusive. People don't quite know what it is, so that they can have their imagination, or it can evoke, what's the word? Not evoke, but trigger their imagination into how would they like to use this object, this pot. So it suggests use, but does not sort of define it. I'm not a very defined person. The form needs to be strong and clear, but inviting. I wish I had the courage to make more marks, because I think I want to, but I'm still a bit shy. So I look forward to the next 10 years. I hope I'll get braver. I like to make very simple drawings, so I started to do small drawings on tiles. I can just about allow that. But I started to think about, could I allow myself a little small drawing on a pot, so that's what I have in mind. So there's something about writing on clay that I find very intriguing, very draws me in. And I'm not sure where that'll go. I'm just sort of conscious of that sort of murmuring away.
You throw. You also hand build. Would you say there's a particular technique or form, actually, that you particularly enjoy making?
The form I probably most like to throw is the bowl. You know how people seem to be slightly divided between people who are more drawn to a kind of open bowl shape, or the ones who are more drawn to tall cylindrical shapes. And I'm definitely a sort of bowl person. And there seems to be huge scope in that, all the different kind of forms of bowl. But that's usually on the wheel, I would say, that I like to make bowls. With my hand building, like the spoons, they feel very much like this comes from a place of sort of, they come from a different place. I mean, something to do with hand buildings, I think the emotional connection is almost more direct. Because with the throwing, there is this skill, and there's this falling back on training and skill and all the things you know about how the pots need to be well made. Whereas for me, there's a little bit more freedom, I think, in the hand building. There's less rules about how it has to be done. So it's an area more for sort of self-expression and exploration or something like that. But again, it's an area where, like with the mark making, that I haven't given enough time to in my life.
I'm aware that you take quite a lot of notes during the process of making. Is that something you do throughout the whole process and refer to?
I'll show you the story. So when I'm on the making day, I have this little notebook. So I will write down the weight of the clay, what the clay is, roughly the measurements, or more precisely, the measurements, which part of the kiln it's going. So I'm always thinking of where they're going in the kiln. And then when I come back to slipping them, that might be 2 days later or something, I'll come back and write the notes here. Then after the firing, I'll come back and make notes in a different pen as to how they worked out. This notebook is one that I've kind of tried to keep with me. I do have a lot of fear of losing my ideas, so I try to keep this close-ish to me. There we are. So that's that notebook, and then I have this is the kiln firing book. When we started to unpack it, this is from the west and this is the east. So I do a quick drawing. So I see, and the most important thing about it is actually the measurements of what height the shelves were and the airspace above it, space that I've given to the pots above, because that is what determines so much of the salt and the flame path. If I've left too much space, they might get over-salted. Too little space, they're under-salted. So I've got worse in my old age. I've got more and more detailed with my notes, you know.
So in your finished pieces, they're bursting with rich tones and hues, and I know you use some slips and some oxides, but then there's obviously the flames, the wood ash, the salt vapour. But can you tell us a little bit more about how you decide which forms might be sort of coloured in which way, and how which forms might sit where in the kiln because of that? It's huge.
Right. Well, you covered most of. There was one critical thing that you didn't mention, and that was the clay body. Because first of all, the clay body gives you the tone. So the basic body that I use for quite a lot of the work in the main chamber is this clay from Saint-Amand, and it's called Terre de Saint-Amand, the clay from Saint-Amand, which is this region in the centre of France, and it's a clay that's been used for centuries, or for maybe not centuries, but for a long time, for wood-fired salt glaze. So it has something like 1.5% of iron in it, and it's quite a plastic clay, but the balance of the materials in it make it take the salt well, so it responds well to both salt and ash, but it has, because it's got iron in it, it's quite a darkish tone. So that if I kind of think of that as being the underneath, that's my kind of base palette, and then on top of that I'll be putting slips that either lighten or darken or bring this range of colours. So I think my kind of default slip is the slip that I've and the colours are the kind of reds and oranges, the fiery colours, sort of the colours of India. When I went to India when I was 19, I had no concept of such a thing existing as a potter. I'd never come across a potter. I knew nothing. Didn't really look at pots particularly. But when I got to India, I saw everywhere on the side of the road, in markets, huge piles of these beautiful kind of water jars and different shaped pots, all in this terracotta red, which was the same colour exactly as the soil. So I think in some ways that resonance, that kind of being drawn to that warmth and fiery earth. So there's something about, I do like the colours of the traditional country earthenware pots, which are kind of beautiful reds, and then with a white slip they had that warm yellow, those yellows and reds. So over the years I've sort of just been constantly adapting and testing them.
And you touched on it earlier when you talked about the packing of the kiln.
Yeah.
It